All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. So, folks, today we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger, who's looking like a real deal psycho killer. And there's an interesting period with this one that I want to talk about first, where him and his dad drive all the way across the country from Moscow, Idaho, 2.5 days to their place in Pennsylvania where he's arrested. The story is when they arrested him, he said something like, "Do you have anybody else in custody?" And I think that was Bryan trying to play cryptic games to send the police in a different direction. And really, it just made him look guilty. Imagine if you were just a white Hyundai Elantra owner, innocent, slogging through the daily stresses of life, and all of a sudden you get pulled over and charged with quadruple murder. You're not going to go, "Do you have anybody else in custody?" You're going to go, "What is going on? Are you kidding me? I got something to do in an hour. How long is this going to take?" Because I have a lot to do. I'm very stressed. Life is really hard. But Bryan, I think he's all pumped up with confidence because he's a PhD in criminology. Oh no, not a criminologist. What are we going to do? And it just came off. Maybe he wants credit for the whole thing and he doesn't even mind going down for it. I doubt it because when he got pulled over, he looked like he was going to crap himself. But anyway, the story is he goes, "Do you have anyone else in custody?" I think he was trying to play mind games the way some of the garbage humans he's looked up to, like the BTK killer and maybe Bundy and maybe the Unabomber, the people that really did send law enforcement running around with their heads cut off. I think he thought, "I've thought about this my whole life. I fantasized about these people. I got my degree in criminology. Now it's time for me, Bryan Kohberger, to join the list of these people." And so the interesting point, though, is he's arrested in Pennsylvania, and there's a period, whatever it was, 24 hours, 48 hours, where everybody got to know Bryan Kohberger, but nobody, including Kohberger, his lawyer, or anybody, knew the case against him because there's a law in Moscow, Idaho that says you can't release the probable cause affidavit until the suspect is back in custody in Idaho. So everybody's imagination ran wild. Did he commit the perfect crime because he's a criminologist? He's a PhD. One of his professors came out and said he's such a good student. His research papers are so good. And apparently, another interesting point while he's still in Pennsylvania, before everything came out of the case against him, is he agreed to talk to police. And again, probably the feeling I get is Bryan in his head thought, "I'm going to outsmart them. I'm going to be the smartest one in the room. Remember, I'm a PhD in criminology, okay? Watch out." And so the story is he goes in for a police interrogation, but it only lasts 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe in his head he thought it was going to be like the movies where he gets in there and he's just outsmarting them and faking them out, and his brain power is too much for him. But I picture it, he gets in there, and it's not like the movies, like interrogations aren't. And all of a sudden, they start walloping him with really heavy evidence, or maybe their confidence, the way they were carrying themselves was like, uh-oh, maybe I didn't pull this off as slick and smooth as I was hoping. So he asked for a lawyer 5-10 minutes in. "Can I have a lawyer?" So if you agreed, "Yeah, I'll be interrogated and only last 5 minutes. I want a lawyer." If he was smart, you would think his time studying all of this stuff for years, he would say, "No, I'm not going to be interrogated. I'm not going in there. Get me a lawyer. I'm not saying anything. What are you, crazy?" And then he stared at the wall. A local reporter talked to the people that were guarding him in Pennsylvania jail and said he was hugging his knees in fetal position, staring at the wall in his jail cell. So how's it all going for you, Bryan? You having fun yet? And then he was extradited really quickly. He didn't fight extradition. I'm sure the anticipation was nauseating. What do they have on me? I tried to pull off this nightmare crime in order to be fantasized about by other psychos. And so he's extradited all the way back to Moscow, Idaho. They release the probable cause affidavit, and all the people that were saying, did the PhD in criminology pull off the perfect murder? I always wince when I hear the perfect murder. Is he going to be too smart? His research papers are so good. There was a lot of commentary of the law enforcement took so long to catch him, which it really didn't. Someone I saw in a YouTube comment called it a cold case. It took 7 weeks, and a lot of that was it takes time to do a video canvas and get a search warrant for the phone and get another search warrant for another period of the phone. Really, there were no even hang-ups. It wasn't even tough for law enforcement to come up with a really good case against Bryan Kohberger. Kohberger, I think, is one of these people that wants the whole thing to be a spectacle. He wants it to be in the newspaper. No clues in the Moscow murder case. He wants radio hosts to go, this guy might just be too smart for the law enforcement. Maybe if this went on and they didn't catch him, he would send cryptic messages to the newspaper like BTK. His mentor at the PhD program, or maybe undergraduate, whatever it was, doesn't matter, apparently was the leading BTK killer scholar and communicated with them. And they said Kohberger even communicated with them. But he would send the cryptic messages and play with everybody's heads, and I think sit back and enjoy the sick spectacle that he created, where there's a lot of other types of psycho killers where they get the resolve and the release or whatever it is from doing the crime, but they would be perfectly happy if no one even found the body or if newspapers never reported on it. They would much rather have it just disappear slowly and surely in the media, never talked about again. I think Bryan falls into the category of he wanted it to be on the news and for them to say, there's still no clues, everybody's clueless, and for him to be able to go to class and hear his peers talk about it. Who do you think did it? It seems like it went so smooth, and this might be a genius. And when everything came out with the probable cause, Bryan was looking at this whole thing maybe like a chess match between him and law enforcement. He got whooped. He thought maybe I'll toy with law enforcement by saying things like, do you have anybody else in custody? Ooh, yeah, deal with that. But really, he is the one that got toyed with, completely handled easily. There weren't any even really hiccups. Like when him and his dad were driving from Moscow, Idaho to Pennsylvania, his dad, I guess, thinks they're just going home for the holidays. Bryan thinks, I got to get this white Hyundai Elantra out of Moscow. This is not good. They're driving back. Apparently, the FBI had him pulled over a couple times. They wanted to get a good look of him. They wanted to get a look of, check out his hands. And just think you're Bryan. You don't know what clues you left. You got home from doing the murder and the sheath from your knife isn't there. Oh my God, I left the sheath. Oh no, this isn't going as good as I was hoping. And then you're driving back to Pennsylvania. I'm getting the white Hyundai Elantra out of there. Yes, okay. And then all of a sudden you're pulled over, but the cop doesn't ask even for your insurance. He asks for your license and really has a lot of questions. Or where are you going? Oh yeah, where are you coming from? Wait, did that cop even ask for my insurance? That's kind of weird. And then a little bit farther down the road, you get pulled over again, and his face was of a person that is getting toyed with and jerked around and has no idea what's going on. So he thought he was going to be the chess master. Sorry, I'm too smart for all of you. I have a PhD in criminology and my research papers are really good. And so therefore, I'm just going to outsmart everybody at every turn. And instead, he's getting pulled over. Oh my God, he didn't ask. And then he gets pulled over again. So they bring him back to Idaho and they release the probable cause affidavit. And like I said, the people that were saying, is it the perfect murder? That opinion aged horribly. The law enforcement slowly but surely put a really strong case, stronger than a lot of cases that feels like I've talked about in a while, together. And we're going to go through those. Now that a picture has been painted from the probable cause affidavit, let's go through the events that it appears happened from Bryan Kohberger's perspective as it unfolded, and let's discuss what he was thinking as a lot of these events happened. So, what's funny is the dumbest part, I'll just start with this, probably the dumbest part of this whole thing is Bryan drove his own car to commit a crime that carries the death penalty. So much for being some smart criminologist. If he really was this like Hannibal Lecter-esque criminal mastermind, gonna leave law enforcement totally clueless, pulling their hair out, this guy's too smart for us, you wouldn't do it. Because this day and age, I mean, with DNA the way it is, to commit something like this and think you're gonna get out of it easily and leave everybody totally clueless is just not a smart thought. I think he really looked up to probably the BTK killer or was fascinated by him. That guy was doing it in the 70s, coupled with the law enforcement agency that the BTK was, that jurisdiction was apparently pretty awful. And so the 70s, I mean, I don't think there even was DNA, coupled with an incompetent police force. This is a whole different era, and committing something the way that Bryan Kohberger allegedly did, you gotta know the FBI and a lot of resources are going to be poured in because everybody has the feeling of, okay, this is a senseless, horrific crime, and this person is probably one of those psycho garbage people and is probably going to do it again. So we need to really pour in all the resources, get this solved so it doesn't happen again. So he drives his own car. What kind of moron would do that? There's people that commit misdemeanors that if you were like, you drive in your own car that's registered to you, they would go, no, what do you think, I'm some dumbass? I'm gonna figure out a different way, or I'm gonna get a car that's not connected to me at all and then drive it out and blow it up. There's no way why would I drive my own car? I'll be caught immediately and it'll be an easy case to solve. And so not only did Bryan drive his own white Hyundai Elantra that's registered to him, they have him on camera all over town, driving this way that night, driving that way. They said at one point he tried to park, it kind of failed, had to drive off, did a 3-point turn. It took a while, but they did the whole video canvas and easily got his car. And a hilariously dumb part is back in August, it's looking like with the cell phone data and also the white Hyundai Elantra data, it looks like he was scouting out the apartment where the poor victims lived for an hour in August, and he got pulled over. You got pulled over in your car that's registered to you, staking out the place that you're thinking about murdering people, and you give the police officer during that stop, when you're scouting out the place, you give them your phone number. And so in his head, the brilliant criminologist didn't think when it was leading up and he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this horrible thing. It didn't register in his head, wait a second, I got pulled over in this car that I'm going to use to get there. And as my getaway car, I got pulled over on it. So it's in the system of law enforcement in the area. They have my cell phone, which that will be immediately tracked. Search warrants will be got, which they were. And they're going to look at all of my data, which is me driving past the place that I'm staking out over and over again, sitting there for an hour. They have it all right there. And maybe they won't do that. And so after the horrible night, and they're figuring out, all right, we got to solve this thing. Of course, the first thing they're going to do is video canvases, which are painstaking work. You got to go to businesses and residents, and you got to say, can we look at your surveillance footage from this little moment to that little moment, and it's painstaking. And while they were doing that, which is the next logistical process, when 4 kids end up dead, it's like, all right, let's look at the video around the area. People, remember, were saying law enforcement is blowing it on this one, it's taken forever, this is a cold case. And imagine being law enforcement working on this one, being like, yeah, well, it takes forever. I have to go to all of these places and get the camera work and then watch it, and then you find, okay, that car is the same car that zoomed away over here, and it takes forever. So they put the video cameras together, and they find all of the suspicious driving around of the white Hyundai Elantra. And then they say, okay, law enforcement in the area, we got to find a white Hyundai Elantra, which happened extremely quickly, and it was found twice in one day. So again, Kohberger's genius plan to send everybody in the wrong direction. Do you have anybody else in custody? Oh, was not working. So not only did they easily pull up the record of, oh yeah, we pulled over this white Hyundai Elantra in August, and it was right next to where this is, and the guy is named Bryan Kohberger, and he gave us the number, his cell phone number. So should we track that? So then they got search warrants for the cell phone number. Also, that same day, another cop or something, university cop, also was like, oh wait, I also found the white Hyundai Elantra. So again, none of Kohberger's allegedly genius plan was going to plan. And he gave him the number. That's another thing, is you didn't think with all of your studying and fascination of this stuff, Kohberger, that they would just go on the records of being pulled over. We got his number. Yeah, check it out. So after getting pulled over, staking out the place, 5 days later, after the murder, he changes the plates from Pennsylvania to Washington plates. They were going to expire a time later, but I figure Kohberger was thinking, I am a genius criminologist. And so since I drove everywhere with the Pennsylvania plates, they may have been detected on, the license plate detectors as I drove around. So I am going to trick everybody and change the plates to Washington plates. Because the few days after the murder, Kohberger drove 50 miles in one direction and 100 miles out to the middle of nowhere forest in the other direction, most likely getting rid of the knife, getting rid of God knows what, driving around. And so he probably did all of that stuff and then thought to himself, okay, I am getting rid of the license plates on this one. Again, that's really nothing when you think about it. They could easily, that now you're just making more of a paper trail, more of a record. This isn't the Hannibal Lecter-esque criminal mastermind that I think Kohberger thought he was before this whole thing. And so he changes the plates. Then it's just a painstaking getting search warrants that takes forever. And so first they get a search warrant for the phone records of just the 24-hour period before the murder and the 24-hour period after the murder. And I think Kohberger thought, the way I see it, really the one main big strategy Kohberger had to get away with this whole thing was to turn off his cell phone right before the murders and then turn it back on after he's away. That's it. Wow. He didn't have any plan to leave it on at his house. See, I was at my place the whole time. He didn't have it on, so maybe a text message or something was sent far away. He just turned it off right before, and then it popped back on right after. And so if they have you, if your cell phone barely ever turns off, including when you're staking out the place over 12 times, and your cell phone's on then, and your cell phone's on all the other times, and then the one time it's off is when you allegedly are committing these awful murders, that looks as suspicious as maybe even bringing your cell phone and just having it on. That's nothing. Again, why, Bryan, was that such a fabulous idea? Well, folks, his cell phone wasn't on during that short period of time. Therefore, this case is closed. It's definitely not Bryan. And so his cell phone turns off. He allegedly goes and commits these murders. Then the cell phone pops on a couple hours later. He drove his own car like a dumbass, drove it all over the place. It's not like he drove it to one spot and then walked a ways and then drove it back and then quickly drove out of there. And he was on cameras all over the place. And so let's picture now Bryan gets home after the horrible night. And I get the feeling he probably was thinking he was going to feel high and feel, oh my gosh, I did it. I pulled it off. I've been thinking and studying and fantasizing about people that do stuff like that my whole life. But I would guess a major buzzkill in the whole thing that ruined what he thought was going to be a fun getting home and just being vibrating with what he just did. I bet it was a major buzzkill to get home and go, wait, where's the sheath of my knife? Oh no, where is it? I'm supposed to be a criminal mastermind. The people I looked up to wouldn't have left the sheath of their knife, possibly with DNA evidence on it. And so the next day, he drove around until 5 in the morning. And so the next day at 9:12 a.m., so I bet he didn't sleep. But if he did, it was less than 4 hours. He drives back, which he's on cell phone. Again, Bryan, you really just think they're going to look? Well, his cell phone wasn't there during the exact time. Not a suspect. He drives back to the place, which I would guess he was going to see. One, is there going to be a huge crime scene happening? Maybe he can enjoy that picture. This is my work. He's going to stand there like a psycho and stare at it. But because he lost the sheath of his knife, I feel like maybe that was to go back and look around. Is it out on the front lawn? Oh my gosh, there's not even any law enforcement here yet. I could maybe go grab it. He was probably looking around, didn't see it, and left. Well, the sheath of the knife, as everybody knows, did have DNA on it. So not only does his cell phone records look pretty much exactly how you would think they would look of someone casing the place like a creeper stalker over and over again, and then someone driving all over the place erratically the next day to ditch stuff, and all of that corroborates exactly with the footage from the video camera of the white Hyundai Elantra that is registered to his name. And so going back, this case for law enforcement, who everybody made fun of for how long it was taking and how horrible they were doing, it really moved in a nice, succinct, didn't even hit really any hiccups other than, all right, we got to get a search warrant. That's going to take a while. We got to do the video canvas. Those take forever. And so they get the DNA from the knife sheath. So they got this DNA, they got the Hyundai Elantra, and they got the cell phone records, and everything is looking pretty good. So I would imagine they started heavy surveillance following Bryan Kohberger around. There's stories that he was wearing surgical gloves to the grocery store. Instead of wearing surgical gloves to the grocery store, it probably would have been a better way to not drive your own car and to plan out the cell phone stuff a little bit better and to not do the whole thing. You know, really sad stuff. But anyway, I'm sure they're looking at Kohberger. They're thinking, all right, we got to get DNA. We got to see if his DNA matches this, which matches the cell phone, which matches the white Hyundai Elantra. He's toast. And then at some point while surveilling him, I would guess that they saw his dad show up. And then it probably saw them packing up to a certain point, which probably was a little bit of a bummer because they're thinking, okay, now what do? We got to follow this guy all the way across the country, which sounds like nowadays they have the license plate checkers that they just ping. All right, he's in Loma, Colorado. Ping again. All right, he's in Indiana. And they maybe followed him back that way. I would guess they probably followed him a little bit more closely with actually a human driving. But just think, it's Christmas time. It's the holidays. Everybody needs this solved. But also, you want to give law enforcement time with their families during the holidays and stuff, and it's like, oh great, Kohberger now is driving the white Hyundai Elantra out of here with his dad. Are they going to Mexico? Where the hell are they going? So they gotta, at least I would say closely, but maybe from afar, follow Kohberger all the way across the country. And in his head, he thinks Kohberger doesn't know what they have on him. Maybe the sheath, maybe it's nothing. He had heard his peers talking about it while he sat in class. Oh my gosh, who do you think did it? This is crazy. So maybe he enjoyed that for a little bit, going, maybe I did get away with this. All the news is showing is a blurry white Hyundai Elantra. Well, now I'm driving my white Hyundai Elantra out of town, and I haven't even been talked to by law enforcement. I'm making my big escape. I probably think that Kohberger was going to say, nah, I'm leaving the white Hyundai Elantra here in Pennsylvania, family. I don't need a car anymore. I want to get a different car. You guys keep the Elantra. Let's sell it here. No, I don't want to bring it back to Moscow, Idaho. And so him and his dad are driving a 2.5 day, which is not easy to do. That's a lot of hours in the car, driving all the way from Moscow, Idaho, all the way to Pennsylvania. Kohberger doesn't know that there's a strong case against him. He still thinks he's this genius, and all of a sudden he's pulled over. Then all of a sudden he's pulled over again. He thought he was going to be doing the toying, and he's just getting toyed with, getting whooped in the sick chess game that he wanted to play. So now he gets all the way back to Pennsylvania, which was also a completely dumbass move by Kohberger, because they most likely have your DNA to go in there with a knife and go ballistic like he did. It's pretty hard not to leave some sort of DNA, blood, the one on the knife sheath, something. There's so much body movement and muscle that has to be put in to do that it would be pretty tough to do it. And so he's driving back to Pennsylvania, where a lot of his family's DNA exists, right? It's not like he can get back to his family's place during the holidays, and as his dad's taking the trash out, gonna take the trash out, he goes, no, don't take the trash out, Dad. What do you say we leave the trash in, and then I disperse of the trash at 4 a.m. by putting it in our neighbor's trash cans? What do you say about that? His parents, if they didn't know he did it, would go, what? No, Brian, we're not going to do that. The neighbor will think we're psychos. And so I think we're just going to take the trash out. So I'm sure Brian was like, oh no. And he was getting rid of stuff. They followed him around. I wonder if Brian saw them following him around at 4 a.m, throwing stuff away in neighbors' trash cans. Because I picture it a quiet residential area. Did they have a white unmarked van that could just sit there and follow him? But imagine Brian like tiptoeing, trying to, at 4 a.m, get rid of stuff at a neighbor's house, and a car in a quiet neighborhood just drives and then stops. That would have been interesting. Would have been interesting to the walls were closing in quick on Brian. I'm a criminologist. My research papers did so well. Why is this going so badly? And so they were able to easily get some DNA out of the trash can. You drive to your parents' place, all of a sudden the trash can's going to be filled with familial DNA. They get some of it. They match that to the DNA on the sheath, and just like that, Brian's world crashes all around him. This is all allegedly, of course, but it's a pretty strong case, in my opinion. There's a lot of legal analysts going on, all of the shows and everybody saying, well, the defense team is going to pick apart the fact that his phone was off during that time, or they're going to pick apart that the FBI agent said it was this year white Hyundai Elantra when it was actually the next year. And I've been sitting back going, that's not going to be enough. I mean, unless there's some massive change, or like the DNA doesn't work in court, or they ruin the DNA sample, or something really crazy like that, I think that Kohberger is toast. But we'll sit back and we'll see. I'm going to cut it off there. I love you all. It's great to be back. Why? Stiving why? Shamita.